T minus 4 minutes. T minus 3 minutes. T minus 2 minutes. T minus 1 minute. T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds.
All right, folks.
T minus 20 seconds.
Like, share, and comment this.
Ten, 9,
Follow me at
8,
just the right angle.
7, 6,
I'll talk about
5,
issues that affect
4,
you.
3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, folks. Well, a few things I want to talk about today. Big issue is the title of this is We the People versus the what I call it's a done deal crowd. We've been dealing with a lot of issues where by the time we even know what's happening, it's already done. You have no say, and anything you try to say about something doesn't matter because whatever rules were done to allow the public to be known about anything It doesn't matter. And of course, the big issue with this is with data centers. And so I'm just showing here on Twitter X example of this. Here you go. You can listen into Data Center Michigan. This is a guy who has to sit on his porch and listen to this 24/7. But of course, he had no say in it because the data center was built, all the paperwork and stuff needed to get it done was all taken care of before he even knew it was going to happen. And that's the way it's been with almost everything. But sadly, it's been this way for a long time. It's been this way with years ago when conservative activists tried to stop these solar farms and windmill farms. In many cases, it was a done deal then. White Conduit News. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of issue with Facebook. I have been out for a few days. I was a little bit under the weather. But here's one example. Here's Conduit News' article, and I have another one from them. This is for years we've been demanding that PBS, the public broadcasting system, be defunded. We don't need our taxpayer funds going to that organization. And we kept demanding that years and years. If you follow my channel, I would demand this. And every legislature, it seemed like they would do the same thing. They would first promise to defund it, and they would vote to not give any more taxpayer funds, which, by the way, it would need 75 votes in order to pass to get the funding. So a few Republicans could easily have stood their ground and said, no, we don't want any more money going to PBS. And then they would have a vote and said PBS is not getting taxpayer funds. And then they would take another vote and somehow it would pass. And they did that about 3 sessions. And finally, after enough political pressure from people like me and others, we finally got PBS defunded. Well, here's and this is a 3-minute read from Conduit News, but I'll go ahead and tell you. It looks like PBS is still getting some taxpayer funds regarding another way of getting funds by Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And by the way, the CEO of PBS is Carlton Wing, who was at one time a state representative. And this is the governor's restricted reserve funds for infrastructure or operating expenses, but it's still your tax money. It looks like the Arkansas Legislative Council will take this matter up this Friday. Its Performance Evaluation Expenditure Subcommittee approved the request Tuesday with no debate. Here, sorry, folks. So there are some outside supporters that are supporting Arkansas TV. And so a bunch of other people who could have bankrolled PBS beforehand they could have paid for it the whole time instead of taxpayers having to do so. The majority of Arkansas's TV funding from state funds. So Arkansas Advocate talked about this as well. And this is kind of an update. So I'm still not entirely clear what all this means, but for a long time, your taxpayer funds, it was no choice in what happened. They would, you had to Part of your paycheck went to PBS, whether you wanted to have it there, go there or not. And that's not even the biggest problem. Years ago, we fought against things like solar panel farms and these windmill farms. There's actually advocate groups that were dedicated to having to fight against those. And in many cases, as well as those in the crypto mining facilities, by the time people heard about it, all the zoning and a lot of tax breaks were already done. And here's a story by South Arkansas Reckoning in March of this year, where they couldn't even have a discussion regarding the solar farm in Grant County. And another fake company called Apex Clean Energy. And it was supposed to be on an agenda. And they were also fighting against the data center then. And most of these solar panel farms, they turn out to be absolute scams. They're promised that they're going to, lower the rates and get us away from petroleum fuel, what they call fossil fuel, to make it sound like it's going to disappear. So we have to innovate when actually we don't. Petroleum and coal are actually the best way to power modern society, but these people don't believe that. So a FOIA had to be filled out just to get information regarding this, the Piney Hills Energy Project. And again, by the time people saw this, it was already a done deal. Approximately $700 million in capital investment for hundreds of jobs. So again, this is a lady just trying to find out the details of this thing. And then the company decided to be removed from the agenda. So that's the kind of weird stuff that happens with this. Again, another done deal. What we're being sick and tired of is the done deals. I actually talked with Kim Hammer, who was a state senator who was running for Republican for Secretary of State, about the education funding accounts that Arkansas has as part of Arkansas Learns. And this was debated out in the Arkansas legislature on Tuesday. They're called EFAs. Opportunity Arkansas has been fighting for EFAs for a while, and apparently the Arkansas Department of Education decided to put some rules restricting on how some of the EFA funds can be used because they hate people leaving the public education system. So they try to put up roadblocks so that people have a harder time being able to leave that system. And what they did is they passed a bunch of rules in the that had to be debated for the Arkansas legislature. And it's not a law, but it's a rule change. And apparently, a bunch of people showed up. About 13 people showed up at a time when most people are at work to speak at this legislative hearing on Tuesday. And they were opposed to almost all of them were opposed to this rule change. I saw a little bit of this. It was in the Arkansas legislature. And it turns out that even though these people had taken time to show up to this meeting, lo and behold, I didn't know this at the time, but apparently in order to stop a rule change, it either has to supposedly violate the Constitution or violate the intent of the law. And I actually had a copy of the video. Here you go. By the way, if you want to look at a hearing, they are broadcast online. Let me see if I can. Here's what I'm looking at right now. Contracts adjournment. That may not be the right one. Administrative rules. That's what it was. Apologies. Wrong thing. You can see a lot of the things that the legislature has to go through. Even though there's they're not officially in session, there's still a lot of things that they have to process, and this is one of them. Okay, I think trying to see what time that thing was. So the EFA stuff was originally the first part on the agenda, and it was moved to the second part. By the way, there's Kim Hammer right there, who I spoke with later on. And these are the people that are having to wait for an upwards of about 2 hours before they can speak. Here's the example of a guy speaking regarding this issue. What the? Oh, looks like I kicked it out.
Or how hard you work, how much you sacrifice, or how excellent you become.
There we go.
If you earn your spot, Arkansas does not support you. You will be forced to participate below your level, not because you failed, but because you succeeded. And I would urge all of you to reject this rule change. Help Arkansas children become excellent.
So that's just a small example of one of the many people that spoke against this rule change. But again, it turns out that by the time this rule was presented before this body, it had already been, again, as I call it, a done deal. Unless someone could prove that it was a violation of the intent of the law or violated one of the constitutions, either on a state or federal level, that it was already going to pass. And sadly, that's the way things are being done nowadays. You don't have a say in what goes on. By the time you even hear about a plan that's being done, it's already set in stone. And pretty much your voice doesn't matter. And we, the people, are just tired of this. And this is why a lot of people are showing up. People from both sides, people from multiple sides are saying enough of the backroom deals. This country was started by, no taxation without representation. That was a huge theme in the creation of this nation. And now it seems like we're almost back to the way it was beforehand, where things are being decided without our say-so. And on a similar note, if you don't want any more special backroom deal plans, if you are tired of the way the data centers, the solar panel farms, the smart meters, the COVID jab agenda, the way those things are being laid out, then you need to oppose Arkansas issue 3. This is from Conduit's Facebook page. Since June 2025, a group called Arkansas for Strong Communities, the Legislative Questions Committee supporting issue 3, has raised $634,000. But these are some of the characters involved in trying to sell that scam. Arkansas State Chamber Chair Randy Zook, who should be nowhere near the Republican Party. Randy Zook is pro-illegal immigration, pro-transgender mutilation of children, pro-higher taxes as any liberal. But he is working with Republicans. Nabolt's Construction. There's Nabolt's that are a part of the Republican Party. I don't know who Brad Hedgeman is, but then Senator Jonathan Dismang, he's supposed to be a Republican. And then Representative Howard Beatty is also a Republican. And then an attorney. And then you see who's actually bankrolling these. I don't know who Central AR Council even is. The Waltons, that's Walmart. And then Stevens Banking. Additional donors, of course, the State Chamber. Baldwin and Shell Construction, they're the company that oftentimes bankrolls a lot of these millage tax increases. They bankrolled the Bryant millage tax increase as well as the North Little Rock Valentine's Day tax increase so they could get the construction contract using your taxpayer dollars to build a better, a bigger, more expensive looking school that still doesn't teach kids. And I think our North Little Rock School District still has an F rating, if I'm not mistaken. They did it not too long ago. And then numerous other organizations tied to commercial real estate, construction, engineering, and economic development. And as I've said before, that word means taking your money and giving it to politically connected folks. That's all it is. And then there's kind of the paperwork. And here you have this clown cutting taxes to create no jobs. That's not what issue 3 does at all. And it's basically with other places where, again, they take your money and they use it on pet projects. Well, folks, again, you can find me at Just the Right Angle on Rumble, YouTube account Keep Arkansas Legal, Keep AR Legal on Twitter X, also on Truth Social and Gab. And always remember the Bible verse I have, Proverbs 29:2. When the righteous are in authority, the people will rejoice. When the wicked ruleth, the people mourn. You all have